and she's going to be presenting on Hulu Manu.
Everyone. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Keely Alexander, and I am a senior art history student here at St. Ambrose. And since the beginning of last semester in the fall, I've been conducting an independent research project going over art within the Hawaiian Islands, ranging from traditional craft to European and American influence on art, as well as up to modern day artists as well. But today in particular, I'm going to be talking about a specific traditional Hawaiian art form known as Hulu Manu. And Hulu Manu itself just translates directly from Hawaiian to mean bird feathers. And as it implies, it is an art form made primarily of feathers from native birds of the islands. But the catch is that this art form was only made for members of royalty and other members of the ali'i class, also just the elite in general. And Native Hawaiians used bird feathers because it was a visual indication of the connections between these chiefs, kings, and the gods as well. Basically, they had the mentality of if they wore these feathers pieces or displayed them, then they would be able to one day reach the heavens, be with the gods and the ancestors as well. A lot of what you'll see in Hulu Manu, the colors being used are red, yellow, and black primarily, just because those are the most common colors you'll see in native birds in Hawaii, but also it's a very visually impactful set of colors to use as well. The process itself is very labor intensive, but it's also collaborative because several groups within the community had to come together to create just one beautiful piece of artwork to give to their chief. But the main groups being used are the farmers who would cultivate the fibers for the actual netted base to attach the feathers to. But the gatherers were also the ones who were responsible for tracking the birds and collecting feathers. They usually tried to collect it during molting season because they never actually killed the birds for feathers. However, they did make them a little bit uncomfortable every once in a while, maybe. Hulu Manu itself is very broad and encompasses a lot of different elements of art forms. So you have lots of clothing examples, helmets being used during wartime activities, lei and garland, but there's also religious items where there's effigies being made, and there's also identification purposes where it's used to showcase specific royalty or royal families as well. In terms of actually seeing the pieces in person, the Bishop Museum located in Honolulu is going to have the best collection. Second best would be British Museum located in London. Both seem to regularly show it, or at least you have access to it, and a lot of the photos that I have come directly from them as well. Probably the most important or most notable pieces of Hulu Manu that you will see being depicted, at least in paintings, specifically in the 18th and 19th century, are the traditional feather maholes. These particular helmets were, again, used in wartime activities and given to specific men and chiefs that were participating in battle as well. And the crested head shape comes from the war god Ku from the Hawaiian mythos, and he is depicted majority of the time with a crested head shape as well. So they're just pulling that visual iconography from their culture to aid them in their battles as well. These two items right here are feather cloaks known as ahu'ulas, and the Bishop Museum actually has quite a few pieces of Hulu Manu that originally came from the first Hawaiian royal family. The piece on the left is the cloak of King Kamehameha I, which was the man who unified the islands, created the monarchy that's reigned for about 80 or so years. And his specific cloak here is made of approximately 450,000 feathers, so quite a lot. The second cloak here is the ahu'ula of his most sacred wife, Keopolani, and she was also a high chiefess within society of Native Hawaiian society, and her son with Kamehameha I, Liho would actually go on to be reigning as King Kamehameha II. Now their daughter, though, probably has the most infamous piece of Hulu Manu, is her feather skirt of Princess Nahi'enaena. And this skirt was originally 20 feet long and was made almost entirely of yellow feathers, and it was approximately 1 million feathers that they estimated to create this giant skirt. But the princess never liked to wear this skirt. She hated wearing it. It was it was a burden to her, so she hardly ever wore it, which probably contributed to the fact that it has maintained, good condition over 200 years later from when it was originally made. But it has now since been cut down to only 10 feet long just for preservation purposes. And they don't typically show it too often at the Bishop Museum, but when they do get quite a lot of people come out to see it. Here's just another example of a feather cape that a man or a woman would wear in Native Hawaiian society. Again, the colors being used, the red, the yellow, and the black, in a very contrasting way and contrasting pattern, just so the person who is wearing it stands out among the crowd. Now here is an effigy of the war god Ku, like I mentioned previously, and you can see where his head is slightly crested, again resembling the feather maholes, and making sure he's on their side when they're going into battle and bringing them that good luck. This is a this is a style of Hulu Manu that I was not familiar with when I started my research, and this is a type of royal feather staff known as the kahili. And these, you can almost compare it to European coat of arms, where certain feathers, colors, and other materials being used within the staffs are used to indicate specific people or families within the Hawaiian monarchy. So just like in the coat of arms, where you have certain animals, text, they all have a specific meaning, and they're all unique to one person or one family. And kind of going forward in time a little bit, when the monarchy, was modernizing more, taking more elements from American and British society, Hulu Manu transitioned to a state where it was being done in lei form, garland form, and being added to dresses and other, more conservative ways to wear it. The most famous being Queen Kapiolani's dress. This was a dress that she was photographed in a lot and has feathers draping down the front, and all of the pieces along the front there are also made of completely of feathers. And Princess Kaiulani on the right here wearing a lei made completely out of feathers as well. But my favorite way that the monarchy, that used Hulu Manu, further down the line was in this particular photograph of the Queen Liliuokalani. She was the last ruler of Hawaii before it was overthrown and annexed by the United States. But in this particular piece, or in this particular photo, there is a piece of Hulu Manu draped over her throne. And this was most likely done as a political move, because at the time there was really high tensions between the Hawaiian monarchy and the white businessmen who were in Hawaii for agricultural purposes. And so when she ascended the throne as the first queen and released this photo, most of them are not going to see how her displaying Hulu Manu as a sign of, you need to take me seriously, I'm a legitimate ruler, and you need to respect me in my domain, whereas the Native Hawaiians will see that immediately and know, this is our queen, we need to follow her and support her. Hulu Manu is still practiced somewhat to this day, but it's just not super popular and widespread in terms of traditional art forms. Because a lot of the birds that were originally used have since gone extinct, unfortunately, by the 20th century, or have been threatened or listed as threatened or endangered, dyed feathers from other bird species are used instead. And while they don't give the same effect in like grandiose quality as the original pieces are, they're still done with the same methods, they're still done in a respectful manner, and you know, there's still a lot of love being put into these pieces, just like the original ones from several hundred years ago. But I just kind of want to conclude by saying, you know, thank you for coming out and listening to me talk about this, because as someone who's native Hawaiian but didn't actually grow up in the Hawaiian Islands, there's a sort of, I've always had a sort of disconnect, but ever since I started this project last semester, it has allowed me to learn much more about my culture and, you know, just love it so much more, and I just want to continue to share it with as many people as possible as well.